In today's timeline, I'm going to be diving into SpongeBob's entire life, from being a cute little baby to an old fart.
I'm ready!
I've watched over 275 episodes and 3 theatrical movies in preparation for this, so in the words of SpongeBob,
I'm ready!
Hi, I'm Lydia and this is the complete timeline of SpongeBob SquarePants. Oh yeah, and if you want to see the timelines of other residents of Bikini Bottom, then all you have to do is like this video and let me know in the comments which character you'd like to see next. Thank you so much and let's dive in. Baby Bob. Normally, I start these timelines at the character's childhood, but I want to go a little bit further back, all the way back, even before he was born. Also, side note, who else thought that Mama Sponge was a cookie? Anyway, when his mother was pregnant, she went for a bite at the Krusty Krab, and she asks what her unborn baby would like. And looking through her belly button, which triggered a whole new phobia in my childhood brain, SpongeBob asks for a Krabby Patty. He loves it so much, he sucks it right out of his umbilical cord, and that was how his love for Krabby Patty started. Even before he popped out, SpongeBob's dream of flipping burgers was ingrained in his mind. So now let's talk about how he met his best bud Patrick. According to the Sponge on the Run movie, SpongeBob met Patrick while at camp, and while there he found a crying, homesick Patrick, and so to cheer him up, SpongeBob offered to be his best friend, and they went jellyfish catching together. However, for this timeline, I won't be taking this movie into account, or the prequel Kamp Koral, because basically it makes next to no sense continuity-wise. As we all know, SpongeBob didn't meet most of these characters until well later on in his life, but in this movie it almost makes it seem as though their meet was all lumped together in a short period of time. If we go by the television show, however, in the season 2 episode The Secret Box, it revealed that they knew each other as babies, and the two were instant best buds and would remain so as lifelong friends, with their BFF rings making it super official. Now, I would say that their relationship is so strong because of their shared innocence and childlike wonder. Even though SpongeBob seems to take the reins as the more proactive friend, they have both meandered through life in the same naive bubble. SpongeBob's childhood. As we all know, SpongeBob has a kind heart and wouldn't hurt a fly. As such, he was an easy target for bullies his entire life. He was just too nice to fight back, and as a kid, I was waiting for the day he would finally stick up for himself. And one of these times would result going all the way back to his childhood, where he was bullied by his cousin Blackjack. But thankfully, even if much later in life, SpongeBob would confront his bully cousin, and while SpongeBob had grown up, Blackjack had stayed itty bitty small, so he wasn't a threat anymore. SpongeBob's first job. According to the spin-off The Patrick Star Show, SpongeBob's very first job was being a bag boy at Scuttle and Save. Although you'd think it'd be hard to mess up this simple job, the boys somehow found a way. In fact, they caused so much chaos that the manager literally blasted them out of a cannon. Their next gig was painting an elderly lady's fence, and after yet again making a complete mess of it, they became taxi drivers, followed by becoming debt collectors. And if I've got to be honest with you, I can't think of a more adorable duo to take away my most prized possessions. So yeah, he's had more careers in one day than I've had in my entire lifetime. And again, the Patrick Show is a little messy when it comes to continuity, so it's completely up to you whether you consider this as canon or not, but even if not, it does fill a few of those gaps. Buying his first home. So we all know who lives in the pineapple under the sea, but how did he get there? Well, while SpongeBob was on the hunt for his first home, he viewed every property in town. But just when he was about to give up, a pineapple fell out of a boat and landed right on top of Squidward and his garden. And of course, SpongeBob absolutely loved it, and he bought it immediately. By the way, I absolutely love that in the very next shot, it's already got windows. Now, SpongeBob's house is a bit like a TARDIS, in that it's larger on the inside than it looks on the outside. Inside there's a large library, a gym, and even a giant room to stock his many awards. With SpongeBob moving in right next door, poor Squidward was sandwiched between a rock and a hard place. Quite literally, as Patrick lived under a rock right next door too. But despite his constant complaints, Squidward secretly loves it deep down. As we found out when he relocated to a neighborhood where everyone was just like him. However, it's true that too much of a good thing can turn out to be bad, as he soon discovered that Patrick and SpongeBob's hijinks broke up his monotonous routine. So, he's got his pineapple, he's got his windows, he's got his neighbours. What else does he need? Gary. Of course, SpongeBob adopted Gary the Snail at the local pound, and SpongeBob absolutely dotes over him and is quite the caring pet owner. And guess what? That little snail has led a pretty interesting life too. So if you're interested in learning about his timeline, do let me know in the comments below. The Krusty Krab. As mentioned earlier, SpongeBob's lifelong dream was to work at the Krusty Krab. This is something he'd been preparing towards since he was a baby. Hell, even before that. So when he found out that they were hiring, a determined SpongeBob charged towards the restaurant with one goal in mind. But understandably, Squidward saw enough of his annoying neighbour at home, and the last thing he wanted was to be trapped with him at work too. So he and Mr. Krabs sent SpongeBob on a wild goose chase to try and fetch a hydrodynamic spatula. But when the restaurant was invaded by 5 large buses of anchovies, SpongeBob flies in to save the day, and now equipped with his fancy new spatula, SpongeBob serves up hundreds of Krabby Patties to the hordes of hungry fishies. With his tills now overflowing with cash, Mr. Krabs happily gives SpongeBob what he always wanted, the fry cook position. Much to the disappointment of Squidward. The secret formula. As fry cook, SpongeBob was entrusted with Mr. Krabs' most precious thing in the world, the Krabby Patty secret formula. And Krabs instructs SpongeBob never to reveal its secret to anyone, especially his arch enemy Plankton. You see, Plankton ran the empty Chum Bucket restaurant right across the street, and his lifelong ambition was to get his tiny hands on the Krabby Patty secret formula. And he went to some extreme lengths to get it, including but not limited to crawling inside SpongeBob's head and attempt to control his mind. Again, like all of his many attempts, this of course failed. He even went as far as putting SpongeBob's brain into a robot, and despite all of this, SpongeBob still never gave away the secret. And as the show went on, we will always see examples of SpongeBob's loyalty to his friends, his job, as well as him always trying to do the right thing. Yes, the formula is super secretive, so if Mr. Krabs stores it on his computer, I just hope he uses NordPass to help protect it from pesky thieves like Plankton. NordPass is a simple, easy to use and very secure password manager, which is trusted by more than 14 million users worldwide. And if you're anything like me, then you have a million different passwords and always end up forgetting them. So you have to go through the pain and aggro of constantly having to reset them. And no joke, I've literally reset my Instagram password several times this year alone. But with NordPass, it saves all of your passwords securely and auto-fills them too, allowing you to log in so much faster. And plus, NordPass even generates secure passwords, meaning that your accounts are so much safer. So go to nordpass.com/LydiaLoves or use code LydiaLoves on checkout. This is for an exclusive 2-year NordPass premium plan discount, plus 1 month completely free, and it's risk-free too with a 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the description below. So, how old is SpongeBob? This is a question that many fans have been asking for years. So, in order to solve this mystery, I asked my good friend and resident SpongeBob expert Dave Lee to come and help me out. Dave made a super in-depth SpongeBob evolution over on his channel, so if there is anyone that would know the answer to this important question, it's this guy.
Hey Lydia, although SpongeBob can be childish, he owns his own home, has a job, and is currently attempting to get his driver's license. So we have to ask, how old is he exactly? Well, according to his driver's license in the episode Sleepy Time, released in January 2000, SpongeBob SquarePants was born on July 14, 1986, which would make him 13 years old at the time of the episode's airing. But that still seems a little too young to me. Creator Steven Hillenburg once joked that SpongeBob is 50 in sponge years. Interestingly, he originally wanted SpongeBob to be an adult, while network executives wanted him to be a child. So to compromise, Hillenburg introduced Mrs Puff's boating school, so he could be at least old enough to get a driver's license. So look, don't expect a definite age to be given to him anytime soon. Personally, I've always seen SpongeBob as someone in their late teens to early 20s. Thanks for having me on, Lydia.
Meeting Sandy Cheeks. According to Kamp Koral, SpongeBob met Sandy all the way back as a child at camp, but most fans like us know they actually met many years later. Duh. Kamp Koral even tried to fix this major continuity error with time travel, and that's a true story. In one episode, it was revealed that Sandy found a way to communicate with her past self and instructed her to go to camp in order to stop Plankton getting his hands on their secret formula, effectively creating 2 different timelines. Anyway, let's go back to the real way they met. Sandy was a patriotic Texas squirrel who was new to Bikini Bottom. And when I say patriotic, I mean you best not say anything bad about the Lone Star State, otherwise you'll feel the wrath of the squirrel, as Patrick soon found out. Anyway, SpongeBob first saw Sandy not at camp, but rather while wrestling a giant clam, which is far more exciting in my opinion. In turn, SpongeBob impressed the squirrel with an armpit fart, so she invited him to her fancy new undersea dome. But despite wearing an underwater suit herself, she forgets that fish need water, and SpongeBob is far too polite to say otherwise. Therefore, the star of the show slowly suffocates inside her glass tomb.
I'm okay!
It was only until she saw a dried up sponge and starfish she decided to give them a bowl of water to survive. It was a turbulent tea time to say the least. SpongeBob's other jobs. There are literally hundreds of episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants, so I couldn't possibly cover everything in this video. But let's take a look at just some of his many other jobs, and there's a lot of them. Just take a look at this wiki page. His jobs include, but not limited to, a lifeguard, prison guard, and of course, chocolate salesman.
Chocolate? Chocolate! Chocolate!
But perhaps his biggest job was in the first SpongeBob movie, where by the end he was promoted to manager of Krusty Krab 2, which was conveniently located right next door to the original Krusty Krab. But the odd thing is that this promotion and even the restaurant is never mentioned again in the show. So, what happened exactly? Well, there is a theory buzzing around that the first movie marks the end of the official timeline. You can imagine that all of his adventures after the movie would roll nicely into a close where he finally gained the respect he deserved after years and years of hard graft. This kind of makes sense timeline-wise, as SpongeBob says in the movie that he's been Employee of the Month 374 times in a row, which is the equivalent of around 31 years, so this movie could be set far into the future from the present day. But do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. SpongeBob in the modern day. Now, I've spoken a lot about the classic episodes of the show, but what has SpongeBob been getting up to in the modern era? Now, obviously I can't cover everything, but let's go over some of the best and wackiest adventures he's been up to recently. One such wild trip saw SpongeBob visit the surface world and discover his human counterpart, working at the Trusty Slab.
I love this guy!
In fact, the whole of Bikini Bottom is there too, all in human form. While there, he almost got himself eaten until a last minute save by his best friend Patrick. Also, side note, how awesome is it seeing the real voice actors playing their characters on camera?
Enough of that!
Sorry, sir.
SpongeBob has seen some real growth within the past few years. In the episode Mimic Madness, it saw SpongeBob go through somewhat of an identity crisis, and he starts doing impressions of everyone in town, and at first they think it's amazing. But SpongeBob copies everyone so much that he ends up losing himself along the way, which leads him to ask himself, who am I? But with a little help from his friends, SpongeBob learns that it's okay to be his own unique and silly self. Aside from these self-reflective episodes, SpongeBob has never been afraid to get weird. Yes, SpongeBob has found himself in some very strange places, going as far back to rock bottom, one of my personal favourite episodes. Most recently, in the episode SpongeBob in Random Land, he finds himself in the oddest of places. When the Krusty Krab gets an order from Random Land, Squidward and SpongeBob must travel to a dimension where the laws of logic don't exist. While there, SpongeBob has to make sure that they don't end up like the other lost delivery men, doomed to wander this topsy-turvy world. But SpongeBob is no quitter and eventually finds the customers in the end. It's a weird episode to say the least. Other bizarre places SpongeBob has found himself in is the Doodle Dimension. After he and Patrick jump into Sandy's new portal machine, they come face to face with Doodle Bob, a manic 2D drawing that SpongeBob has brought to life with a magic pencil all the way back in season 2, and they must draw themselves out of danger and back to their real world. Speaking of returning characters, SpongeBob also visited his old friend Bubble Buddy in Bubble Town. Honestly, SpongeBob has gone through so many adventures within the last 20 years that I could go on about forever, but I have a video to finish, so let's move on. SpongeHench. Now, let's take a look at one of the darkest SpongeBob episodes ever, episode 99, SpongeHench. In it, a very blustery wind causes SpongeBob to make music through his holes. This music attracts jellyfish from far and wide, and they just won't leave him alone. Therefore, making his life an absolute misery, he takes refuge in a cave. SpongeBob spends years, perhaps decades, hiding away inside this cave, and it must have been a long time, as when we next see him, he's sporting a rather spiffing beard. So to finally free himself, he builds a circle of giant stone statues, and the music these make finally succeed in getting the jellyfish off his back. Finally free, SpongeBob runs back to Bikini Bottom, to freedom, only to find that everyone he knew and loved are long gone. This is so dark for a kids show, and it's super depressing, and it left many with a feeling of existential dread. We then cut forward 3,000 years into the future, and we learn that the origins of SpongeHench is now considered a mystery. Some have speculated that this episode could technically be the last SpongeBob episode ever, and that every episode after this actually takes place before SpongeHench. Although others have debated whether it's even canon at all. Either way, I won't be doing my job if I didn't include it. It's one of those mysteries in SpongeBob lore that needs to be spoken about. His old age. Now let's jump forward into the future, which is always a fun segment on this channel.
Future!
In a flash forward, we see a much older SpongeBob is still living in a pineapple under the sea, and while everything around him has updated, his pineapple remains very much the same, which makes me think that this future is similar to the one that Squidward time traveled to. Anyway, we see that SpongeBob now has a grandson, perhaps suggesting that this eligible bachelor has finally settled down at some point to start a family. Although, if we think of this logistically, sea sponges reproduce asexually, so it may just be that SpongeBob doesn't need a man, a woman, or a fellow sponge. Maybe, just maybe, he just needs his friends and Gary. And so that completes the SpongeBob timeline. With hundreds of episodes with conflicting information, this was super challenging to write. So if I missed anything important, please feel free to shout at me and put me on blast in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.